When can I realise my 500 tonnes per £500 a tonne of carbon? Because that would release an awful lot of good positive work.
I can't write you that check, but we can design a structure that can allow you to benefit if that market moved in that direction. So, and I think that's what it's about. It's about making sure that we're not projects are not. When landowners are making these commitments, which are, I think someone mentioned it earlier, I think it was Adam, they're making these long-term commitments, giving them the ability to actually benefit and hand over an asset rather than a liability to the next generation, I think is really important. And so, yes, come 2050, maybe it won't be fun. Maybe it'll be £1 a tonne. But actually, if some of that risk and that upfront capital has been taken by investors, then that landowner, there's potentially structures where that landowner may not take any market risk and he's just getting a rent for his land if that's what he wants. On the other side, that landowner could participate in that market risk and share the risk and the rewards with investors. And so there's a myriad of solutions in between that, depending on the individual risk appetite of the landowner and the developers involved. But I think it's important not to sort of sell away all your carbon at the front or even sell away your biodiversity units at the start of the project, because you're sort of potentially missing out in what might happen in the next few decades.
Thank you. The IT is caught up. Are there any UK examples of private finance of nature initiatives? I'm guessing it's either Arti, Joshua, or Rich. Or does your silence mean there aren't?
I could answer first. So we're Finance Earth. We're an advisory business, but also a fund manager, and so we're currently fundraising for what we've called the UK Nature Impact Fund in conjunction with Federated Hermes, which is a large institutional asset manager. So the fund is going to be managed by a JV between Federated Hermes and Finance Earth. And we've secured 30 million of investment from DEFRA, which was they're calling the Big Nature Impact Fund. We've designed a fund that was went beyond DEFRA's ambitions of just England and just peat and woodland and B&G. And we've created a UK-wide fund, which we're currently in the process of fundraising for and hoping to reach first close by the end of the first half of this year. And that will be investing across the UK in providing repayable finance to get woodland projects, peatland projects, B&G projects going, but also invest in the companies that are creating them and that are servicing them, because we recognise that it's not just a capital problem for projects. There's a capacity problem. So there's lots of great companies working across the nature restoration supply chain in the UK, but often they struggle to access capital. So our fund is designed to provide the project finance, but also the growth capital for the organisations working around that. So that will hopefully be coming later this year, and happy to have a separate conversation about that.
Okay, thank you. Arti?
I think my question was more for Rich. How has the private sector appetite been for that fund? Because obviously DEFRA's cornerstoned it, but what about the rest of the appetite?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay, no, that's fine. I could talk about this all day, so don't worry. So the condition of DEFRA's investment was for every £1 of DEFRA money, we had to get £2 from the private sector. So most of my time and most of the team's time is currently in quite deep due diligence processes with a range of investors, from local government pension schemes who are increasingly trying to deliver real impact with their investments, insurance companies that want that long-term investment in nature-based solutions because they recognise the wider benefits of that and the risk reduction benefits of that, and also a couple of national development banks. So what we have found, though, is that actually it's taking a long time to educate those investors, because all of these investors, they're not used to natural capital. It doesn't actually exist yet as a separate asset class, they would call it. It sits in between existing asset classes, and it's got a bit of a real estate angle in there. It's quite similar to infrastructure. It's quite similar to what our strategy is, because it's got a private equity element in it as well. But natural capital sort of sits in between all three, with a little bit like renewables as well. So they're trying to get their heads around it and get their heads around what is the confidence that these revenue streams are still going to be there in 10, 15 years' time, especially given B&G is only just coming in for a national market. and woodland carbon code and peatland code credits, well, very few have actually got to verification yet. So that's where the real value add is theoretically coming in, because the verified credits are the ones that can be used as offsets. So educating investors about the risks and about the markets is what is actually taking a long time. But I think once you get some investors taking the plunge and then you get that track record of not just revenue but return on an investment, then I think everyone is going to follow, because all the conversations we've had to date are extremely positive. Everyone really, really wants to invest here. It's a tough fundraising environment because people are moving away from private markets and risky assets, but actually these kind of strategies are actually way more important for them, given the pressures that these investors are having internally and from their, the pensioners and from other of their stakeholders, to move into real impact.
Joshua, did you want to add anything to that?
I can't recall answering the exact question, but in terms of the original one there, so I mean, I mentioned the green bond stuff we're trying to do, and the idea is there, but it's a mechanism to bring in private finance. What I would say to perhaps complement what's already been said is that you can tag nature initiatives on to other stuff. So you'd have, a major infrastructure investment around road or even something like hydrogen or whatever, but actually, the land isn't going to be an entire massive tarmacked area. There's going to be green space either side of it. And quite often, a lot of these funds are the private funds. I mentioned briefly green frameworks earlier, so there's all sorts out there. There's loads of green, ESG, sustainability frameworks. Quite often, they tie into the Sustainable Development Goals as well. So if you are looking about articulating opportunity, it's quite helpful if you kind of fit into those frameworks as well. But within that, if you're then demonstrating, look, we're going to do this project which can offer you this return, but by the way, it's also going to plant all these trees along the side of it or something like that, then that's a way of kind of enhancing the proposition, I guess. So in terms of private finance, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Can you pop up the next question then, Charlotte? I think there's one that there talked about local nature recovery strategies have been important for delivering East Midlands Forest Network. How can Natural England support integration of the MFN into all Midlands LNRSs? A few acronyms there, keep up. We're almost at lunch.
Yeah.
That is fair and squarely at you, Adam.
Is it at me, that one? Yeah. No, great question. And I think just on that private finance bit as well, from a public sector angle, we've got the landscape recovery scheme. It's in phase 2. The cap's now been lifted on the size of those. So we've got an example just near Grantham, Boothby Wildlands, which has got this development phase now. They've bought the land, 700 hectares. And then they're now looking for that investment and the opportunity. So it's a way of linking up what Rich and others have been talking about there. So I think that kind of, those two things have to come together at some point, I think, to make it real. And I think that's the challenge now, is to make some of this real. In terms of Natural England's role in supporting that integration, I think that's exactly what our role is that supporting authority. Each LNRS has got will have an advisor attached to it from Natural England, so we've got that kind of one-to-one buddying support for each local nature recovery strategy. And they don't operate in a vacuum. They will operate within that network and that community of people working on local nature recovery strategies and try and help with that join up and sharing of ideas across those boundaries.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to another question just because of time. Seems to be a lot of replication between the MFN and national, regional, county-based investing models, which is confusing to local operators and landowners. Who should we go with? Call from desperation from the floor. Any thoughts on helping avoid that replication?
I could perhaps answer this from another example. So one of the things we've done in Midlands Engine is create the Midlands Investment Portfolio. The idea was that we have 65 local authorities, 17 upper tier local authorities, all and a combined authority, and 2 more coming, all with their own kind of capital investment prospectuses, Prospecti, all sorts of other stuff. So, and then you've got Department of Business and Trade above that, who have the UK Investment Atlas, which is patchy. I don't know if anyone's from DBT here, but it's patchy. So there was a gap. So what's the single source of truth? If I'm an institutional investor or a developer or an end user looking for a new site, what do I look at? Well, the idea was we can provide value here by providing that platform in the middle. So instead of looking at 65 different sites or whatever else, we will aggregate it, the priority sites, the biggest ones, categorised by sector or land use opportunity, and then present it as a single source of truth. So that's been quite an effective model. It's been used for various different things. It's even been used by other entities now, like Midlands Connect for transport planning. So I think Midlands Forest Network has an opportunity to do the same sort of thing with nature propositions. And within that, and actually I've just thought of it on the previous question, so we work a lot with various big businesses, so Boots, for example, Toyota, are just two recent examples. They have massive estates and campuses, Miro Technology Park as well. And within that, they already have biodiversity initiatives and reforesting and rewilding. So there's an opportunity as well to kind of map those almost domestic internal initiatives as part of this and feed that in, because these guys have got loads of money. They might want to, just over their border fence, why not support it? Because they have these big sustainability initiatives. So sorry, that's just my thought there on the investment portfolio example.
Darren wants to pick up on that.
Yeah, I suppose the one thing I would add to that is I think we should look at diversity of model as a strength rather than a weakness. I think what the Midlands Forest Network can do is it can be that kind of convening power of the outcome that we're looking to achieve, and then provide opportunities for all of those models to play their role, rather than try and kind of shoehorn every model into the same one-size-fits-all. I reflect back on a programme that the Trust runs, which is an emergency tree fund, which is about how do you get more trees out into local authorities. And rather than say, thou shall do it by delivering A, B and C, it's about how do you tell us what's the gaps and what are the things that need to be fixed in your area to deliver the outcome. And that's a much more powerful way of empowering people to deliver for their area, because they're the ones who know about it, but also keeps the commonality of what the overall vision is, which is where I think the Midlands Forest Network plays its role.
Okay. We're going to call it quits there in terms of questions. There's been a lot I can see that come through, so thank you for posting them. We're going to do our best to try and come up with a bit of Q&A on some of the content we didn't manage to cover, and we'll sort of follow up with to circulate after today. But can we give a round of applause to our panellists? It's quite a gig, this. Thank you.